500,000 transactions in them and
Back
500,000 outputs. And so UTXOs. And so I can test corner cases that most people would never in their lives encounter. And so I'm, you know, admittedly, I'm fixing things that probably most people would never see in their lifetime. But I feel like it's got to be done right. And by the way, we're going to end up with stuff that Bitcoin Core itself doesn't have. Like they never have done any of this work to like deal with pathological wallets that have a lot of transactions in them, because their expectation is anyone that's running a wallet with that kind of transaction count is not going to be using the GUI. They're going to be using the daemon only. Um, Gridcoin, we can't make that assumption because there are a lot of significant balance holders that stake all the time, and so over years and years, you develop a lot of transactions that are simply staking, right? And all those are recorded in your wallet and recorded as transactions in the transaction table on the GUI. And so over time, a Gridcoin user, as they get more and more, senior in the network or whatever, been around a long time, historically can develop pretty large transaction counts. And so we don't have we in this instance have more pressure points than Bitcoin Core does in many areas. That's why we have to be careful about just taking the upstream stuff and just like bolting it on to Gridcoin, because while there's a lot of stuff that's done upstream that's great, you have to be very mindful about our specific use case when you go to port stuff over, because our pressure points are often in different places than Bitcoin, right?
question regarding that. I don't know how do they speak the GUI and backend, but would it be possible to connect to remote? So GUI connects to remote backend, someone the server.
We could, but that's a lot. So the answer is what I'm doing now. You can only connect locally on the machine, uh, but you can write a different marshaling plugin and be able to do that over the wire. But the reason I'm not tackling that is that right now is that's a huge number of security considerations that you have to think through on that. Right now, I'm being very careful about security, about not allowing, being very tight about who can connect to that core instance, even on the local machine, because, you can have multiple users on one machine, right? But when you start talking about connecting over the wire, you have to worry about, uh, you know, what's going over the wire. Is it free and in the clear? Is it encrypted? If it's encrypted, do we use TLS? Okay, if it's TLS, how do you do the handshake? How do you know that it's an authorized client that's connecting to the core? There's just all sorts of things you got to think through on that we're not ready to do that yet. But we are in a position where we could start thinking about that, um, uh, given this base capability that I'm about to publish now. So pretty neat stuff. Um,
Very neat, thank you.
yeah, John, I think you finally joined. So I was just giving him a discussion of this multi-process work that I'm about to close up. Uh, that does what was long asked for, to split the monolithic process into two, a back end core that's essentially like the daemon, and then a front end that only runs the GUI that's able to connect to it. So anyway,
Nice. And I think I managed to record most of it, or a lot of
oh
it.
cool, all
So
right.
it's neat. All right. I'm context shifting, so give me a moment. But talk about Gridcoin now. Uh, what else? I mean, we have no plan for this really. I'm just recording on OBS. We'll put it up somewhere when we're done. Um, what else you want to talk about from your end, Jim? From my end, is just let us update.
Well, I guess I'll give a sort of an overview of the rest of the stuff we've been doing. I mean, we have uh, renovated the um, memory pool. So there's a lot of things that our memory pool was very, very primitive, because essentially, Gridcoin's core from a quote unquote Bitcoin analog was really forked from Bitcoin years and years ago, right? It was sort of like 0.13. And so, that we've renovated that in several areas. I think everyone knows we already put it in. This is already live. Hash um, time lock contract support. That's in. What's coming next by the way, Bitcoin, what I'm about to say, Bitcoin will never do because they have a different set of pressure points. But we are implementing, uh, John, you know how difficult it is to administrate the foundation wallet with multiple signatures and so on and so forth, right? Because you have to pass the transactions out of band and have everyone sign it, and then the last person that signs it injects it onto the network, and then it finally goes. So we have now implemented, and this is will be live on testnet, partial signed Gridcoin transaction support, which is the idea that there's a separate memory pool that's now been implemented that will pass partially signed transactions to the nodes and allow you to do this multiple signature online on the wallet. Right, so there's actually a special screen that you'll see that where incoming partially signed transactions show up in your wallet, and you're able to countersign them, and then they eventually go live when the number of signatories have been met. So that's coming, and the idea around that is to make common uh, multi-signature transactions more easy to do, which for us is important because especially when we head to stuff we're talking about with like the benefactor contracts and other things that might require multiple signatories, we need to make it easier than just someone passing a raw transaction around. That's crazy. So that's coming. Um, we've done, just looking through the PR, a lot of general bug fixing and correctness problems that we found, as well as a general house cleaning for all of the work that we had to do to do this multi-process work. We've actually uh, straightened out a lot of stuff that was tangled up in the wallet, which should be very good for folks. So what I'm planning on doing, there's been so much work that's been done. A lot of this work can be immediately beneficial to folks without the V15 block next mandatory. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test this on testnet without the V15 gate set. So we're just going to test it in V14 mode. And if everything looks good, I'm going to publish this set of changes as a leisure on the mainnet in V14 mode. So what that means is you're not going to get the V15 stuff. So you won't see the PGST or PSGT um, stuff, and some other things we have for V15, but you will get the benefit of the GUI improvements. You can do the multi-process stuff. All that will be immediately usable for people, which I think would be great for people to have that. So I would expect that would be a fairly quick turnaround. We can soak this on testnet for a few weeks and then do a leisure release to get this out the door. So pretty exciting.
Nice. And I think rare occurrence. Someone else had a mic in here. Does anyone want to ask any questions or talk about Gridcoin wallet development?
Yeah, you should ask. I mean, John and I get tired of talking in the void. So say something.
Speak for yourself, brother. I can hear myself talk, listen to myself speak for days on end. You all know that. uh, yeah, and at this point, you shouldn't even say just the chorus, the core and the GUI, which is pretty neat. If not, then I will say fantastic work. That's all very exciting. It feels like a Gridcoin renaissance all over again, even though you've been cracking on at this for 26 years at this point or whatever.
Well, Gridcoin, I think not that long, but I think I
No.
started working back in 2017 or 2018. So it's almost 10 years now. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I just gave a on a it's not like an actual interview for a news thing, but someone was asking about the DeSci movement. And it's always fun when people come in and they're like, "Oh yeah, DeSci 2017, 20." Like, guys, Gridcoin baby, Gridcoin 2013, Primecoin 2012, 2011, whatever that was. Bitcoin forum post 2009. How do we use blockchain for science? Yeah. Anyway, very exciting stuff.
One more thing we ought to talk
Yes.
about, because someone mentioned the removal of message contracts. The answer is I've looked at this very carefully. There is no real uh, viable solution that I can come up with uh, that would allow us to keep message contracts while eliminating the exposure. And by the way, there's a formal poll. I mean, uh, uh, custom miner, no, ACA R, ACA GRC test, uh, rightfully and did a good job on formalizing the process here to really make a community decision on this. And it's been capped by now a poll. It's been put out around the on-chain messaging question. Just looking at the current details, I mean, it's overwhelmingly 93% already are voting to remove on-chain messaging. And look, I think that's the right answer overall. Um, I believe the right answer is to create custom contracts, which we can do because we have a well-developed contract system. Create custom contracts to handle the cases that we want to handle that require that would need a contract support. And that allows the right process to occur where, if someone wants to use the Gridcoin blockchain for a specific purpose, they introduce that purpose to the community. We wire up a contract to do it. It's run on testnet, and we all vote to change the protocol to allow that to occur on the network, and then it goes live. What I don't like about the messaging system left as it is, and this is beyond just a technical question. This is a fundamental question around network use. Gridcoin in general is not a free for all, right? We are a blockchain network that allows transactions to occur, monetary transactions with Gridcoin. But the next layers on top of it are for a defined purpose, right? We have to remember what our ethos is. We are not in general supportive of arbitrary use of our network. And the problem with the messaging system as it exists, the messaging contract it is as it is today is it's open-ended, and anyone can stuff just about anything in those messages, which means they could theoretically pervert the Gridcoin network for whatever use they want. I'm not sure I, as a community, think that's a good idea. We ought to be, as a community, controlling and approving the modalities that we want for our network, right? That's the whole point of governance. And I think the messaging system as it exists today is it can allows people to do an end run around that, and we shouldn't support it. So, that's my view on this. It makes it harder. It means that when someone wants to use the network for a purpose where they got to have a specific type of workflow or use or messaging approach, we'd have to implement a special contract for that. And it'd have to be keyed to a mandatory, but that to me that's okay. That's proper governance and control.
Would agree
I,
and would
and
not
I
agree.
want to address that 20, 30 character limit. Even in 20, 30 characters, you can stuff bad stuff in 20 to 30 characters.
Oh, indeed.
Okay. So, just severely limiting the size of the message field is not really going to work. Right. And we had a lengthy discussion about this on the issue on the Gridcoin community, Gridcoin tasks repo. There were ideas around, well, how does this compare to a private message field on a bank transaction? Well, that's a lot different because that private message field is not being broadcasted out onto a public ledger that's held by thousands of nodes. Okay. And by the way, you can be held accountable by your bank for messages inside of a memo field on a transaction too. It'll just be between you and the bank and the receiving party. And you might have your banking privileges stripped and it doesn't affect anybody else. But when it's in a blockchain and it's publicly readable by everybody, it's a totally different issue. So, to me, the issue of the loss of memoing, to be able to write a memo. And by the way, it doesn't mean you can't write local memos that's stored in your wallet locally. Those are not being affected by this. There are three different types of memo fields. There's local. The sender can record a memo on the receipt, and then you also have the in transit message, which is the one we're talking about. No one's stopping a local memo field from being used. What we're talking about is the over the wire memo. So I think that's the end of that.
Are you talking about like the message contract, or does it also OP return?
No, the OP return remains.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, and so that doesn't affect your thing at all. I mean, your current, you and I had talked about
Yeah.
moving yours to a custom contract, but really that's only required just to make your thing easier, right? If we implemented a custom contract, you would be able to search. We can write RPCs that would scale better. That because right now you have to basically read every contract and like find your magic, your magic bit or whatever in your, what I'm talking about in the op
Yeah,
return,
that's
which
what
is
I do.
yeah, which works, but it's a pain because you have to scan through them all, right? In this case, you would get a much faster filtering, but this doesn't change what you're doing at all. So the op return, we're not changing at all. And by the way, we are where Bitcoin was before they opened up the op return. So there's strict limits on the op return size in Gridcoin, unlike Bitcoin, which opened it up. And that whole BIP that everyone was talking about was Bitcoin's attempt to try and pull it back in and reimpose the length limits. We already had those length limits. We never took them away, and they were stricter than what Bitcoin allows. And oh, by the way, we don't allow a zero value op return either. So we require a burn to occur on an op return that's a positive value. So that means, unlike Bitcoin, which allows zero value op returns, anyone that's generating an op return has to do a real burn, which poses, it's a low barrier, but it's something, right? So, I think the combination of all that puts us in a much, much better position from an op return abuse perspective than quite frankly our upstream parent.
Uh,
So
I was
yeah,
about to protect OP return actually for the same
yeah,
reasons, which you just. But now I'm good.
yeah. And we're not going to touch op return. Op return is important, and I think we're already in a good position in terms of our rules around that compared to the mess that Bitcoin created for itself on that, which they're now trying to clean up. Okay, John. Sorry.
No, no. This is good. I think there's one more question too. Qua asks about alternative for invoices. Well, you might have already answered that.
Yeah, I think we'd have to create a special, like a special. We could create like a special uh, transaction attribute field with like an enum to define specific types and have those things typed. So, for example, we could provide a numerical field for you to put in like a receipt number or some sort of number. I think that's pretty hard to abuse, and so something like that would be appropriate. It would, and then you can. It's very tight. What we're trying to avoid is free text, right, where you can stuff anything in there.
Very well. On to lettuce. We're going from looking inward to Gridcoin to looking outward to stuff being built on Gridcoin. Um, I am going to share a screen which can't get recorded, so apologies to anyone listening to this. I'll try to describe as much as I can. All right. Lettuce is a thing that I want you to try now. It will not give you the shits as the lettuce in Michigan does. Uh, so, for anyone who needs a refresher, I've been working on a project called Lettuce Compute, open infrastructure for distributed computing, building off of the decades of experience of Boink, using the benefits of just building from the ground up, which Boink does not have. It has both decades of experience and decades of clogged pipes. Uh, Lettuce is built in Go almost entirely. Its code is 100% written by Claude. The engineering is, I would say, 90% written by me. Jim's had a pass at it early on, and then the other 110% is coming from essentially Qua, who's been testing it for the past, I don't even know how long it's been, uh, 3 or 4 weeks, as well as Sam, and I think Snitty has submitted a couple logs, and I think one or two other people. But it's good to go. So we've got uh, first a repo. It's jringo with the dash before the O / lettuce dash compute on GitHub. We are on release 11.1 at this time. You've got your README. You can read through this and see what it's all about. It also ships with 3 different skills. So Lettuce is broken up into, it's almost exactly like Blink in this regard, servers and volunteers. And then you also have the projects that go on within those servers. So you've got the server, which is called the Lettuce Head. And then you've got the project, which is called a lettuce leaf, and then you're a volunteer under that. So anyone can stand up ahead, anyone can create a leaf, and then anyone can volunteer. And the idea is to make this infrastructure user first from the beginning, right? We're building this in 2026, where technology is stabilized so much more than it was when Blink was being developed. So it's shipping with AI. So if you want to start a project, you come in here and you fork the repository into your whatever ID you use, or just on your computer, and you can use command line. You start your agent. I would recommend Claude, and you say, "Help me design a leaf," and it will ask you some questions about what your research is about. So imagine, put yourself in the shoes of a researcher, and you just come in here and you're doing like protein folding, and you say, "Help me design a leaf. Here's my data," and then you say something that only you would understand because you're an expert at protein folding. It will walk you through turning that into a computational problem. This is the least developed skill at this point because I've been focusing more on the heads and making sure that the scheduler is working. So a more effective one at this point would probably be, help me deploy a lettuce head, and it will walk you through. It is pre-coded to default to something like DigitalOcean or some other server provider, but it will walk you through as though you're as stupid as I am, and will say, go to this website, look for this button, click that button, look for this next button, click that button, make sure to save your password in an external file, put it behind a password, all that security stuff, and then it will actually, you'll follow it, and you should be able to, as an idiot, set up your own Boink server, or Lettuce server in this case, and start crunching some stuff. And then you can create your leaf after that. So this has been used to create 2 different heads at this point. One is our tester head, which is called Lettuce Rip. It is exactly what it sounds like. It's a Beyblade simulator. We've got, I forget the exact number, something like 37 different Beyblades. And then we have them battle one another in a battle to the death, as they are Beyblades, in a virtual arena. And I think there's a way to visualize this one. I'm not going to try and find it right now. Actually, I might be able to. I think you just click this and then type in visualize. Here you go. So these are work units people have returned. One of the simulators, I think it's this one, is not great. Didn't spend too much time on making the actual leaf function for this one. But let's try this one. This one might act. Yeah, look at them battle. Come on, blue. I don't know who wins there, but like it's trying to harken back to the fun days of distributed computing, where you get this visualized screensaver and all that fun stuff. So this is native to Lettuce. Anyone who stands up a leaf or a head can build a visualization for their project. You can come in here. You can look at the Qua asks to see the dashboard. First, as a user, here's what you see. You come in. This is, ignore the Monte Carlo right now, but you just come in. Here's how you connect. You go to the repo, get the CLI for the volunteer, Lettuce volunteer init. You connect to the head that you want to connect to. In this case, is library lbry.science. If anyone remembers the library network, it still exists. It was a pretty neat alternative to YouTube. Yeah, and then you do let us volunteer start. And these might actually be outdated. Qua would know more than I would at this point. Uh, so, but check it out on the repo and ask your agent to tell you what to actually run. And then you're connected and you'll start contributing. And right now, I'm in the admin dashboard. This shifts with every head that gets deployed. Comes with a dashboard with a nice UI. Because again, we're building this for researchers who don't want to spend the time to learn how to set up a server. They just want to have it function from the beginning. If we look at this, you can see we've got 608 of the 10,000 work units crunched. 2 people are volunteering. We've got this credit distributed. And you can go through as the admin and look at your queue. I haven't spent a lot of time on the dashboard. Again, most of the time over the past couple weeks has been getting the scheduler to work and dealing with a bunch of edge cases that Qua and others have been identifying. Yeah, so then we've got the second head. This is the first scientific project run on Lettuce. It's hosted through this sort of SciOS is a nonprofit, not important for here, but it's hosted through this server because the idea, and I've shared this with the general public, and the idea is that people can actually come contribute and help with grep. grep is the Great Research Extraction Project. Anyone who's following the open science movement is very much aware of a push for new types of communication, scientific communication, new types of scientific funding, and new types of scientific storage, and all these things. And Gridcoin has a role to play in that world, I believe. But one of the main things is we have a bunch of PDFs of research for the past 30 years. Let's call that legacy communication. And we now need to translate all those to frontier style communication, something like a modular graph, where you're communicating the questions, the claims, the evidence, the data sets used, the software used, all that stuff. That is a Herculean task. So why not have a computer do it? So what grep does is it's runs a bunch of, it's a fine-tuned NER model that will read a PDF and extract the software mentions with their location in the text and their use in the text. Like, is whoever's writing this paper, did they create the software? Are they using the software? Are they extending the software? That sort of thing. And it will run this on 3 different models on the same paper, and then those 3 models will vote on what software is actually mentioned in that paper, right? So it's not just dependent on one model to tell you, hey, I found this thing. It's dependent on 3 models agreeing, 2 of 3 agreeing that they found software in paper. And the really neat thing about this is as models improve, you just shove in a new updated fine tuning, and you're now better at software extraction. And because it's distributed computing with volunteers, you can just run this thing continuously and build up kind of a heat map of software mentions across the same paper over the period of like 5 or 10 years. And at that point, you get even more confidence about what software is mentioned. And also, you can build other models and shove them in here that are like data set mentions and extraction. Because software and data sets are not typically citable objects in research. And then you can also hook a claim extractor into this pipeline, extract claims from PDFs and questions, and you can build grep to grep anything you want from a PDF, and it's running. So it runs with 6 different leaves because, like I said, there's 3 models that run for every PDF, and each of those is stood up to be usable by an NVIDIA GPU and then also a CPU. The GPUs obviously just go much faster. But anyone can do a CPU. It's small. They're fairly small models. They're not tiny, but they're fairly small. And they're going. So you come on in here, and if you want to connect, I forgot how to see, but this is the URL of the head. I think it's info.sios.tech. This is a WASM test. Don't look at that. Don't run that. I actually forgot my own instructions on how to. There we go. Yeah, it's info.ios.tech is the head you can connect to. And then here's what, let's just look at this F14 model on the GPU. We've done 3 out of 140 work units. Each work unit comes shipped with 10 PDFs. We've got 60 credits out there. Let's look at one of the CPUs. 22 out of 142 with 2 active folks. These numbers, again, I have them too much on the dashboard. Probably not right. Let's sort by validated. We've got a good number of validated work units here. Validation in this example, again, I think like Boink, I've never set up a Boink server, but I think like Boink, Lattice lets any head administrator determine how it wants to validate the work units that it ships out. So uh, grep requires 3 volunteers from different accounts and different machines. I think that's the conditional to all run a single work unit before it becomes validated. So it's asking for a lot of compute to validate a single work unit, which I think is fine for now. You can come in here, you can see some failed. Yay, no failed. See some pendings. Assigned. Oh man, nothing's running. Or maybe the dashboard doesn't work. But this is exactly why I want people to come in, stand up their head, make a stupid leaf, get crunching, volunteer to crunch on any existing heads, and then submit reports. We're using the Lettuce, I actually forget what the channel's called, Lettuce Test channel on the Gridcoin Discord to just kind of chat about what's going on. And essentially the triage workflow is you either send me a bunch of messages about what's going on and share your logs in the chat, and then I copy those over to Claude, and I have a triage pipeline, and Claude either fixes it or pretends to fix it, and then you say, that didn't fix it. And then I tell Claude to try again. Or you can submit a log directly on compute.sios.tech. You come up here, you click submit log, and you submit your log. And then I'll get it, and I'll look at it, and then I'll download it and run it. Yeah, so there's a bunch of really cool stuff behind here that once Lettuce is stable and effective, that I think is going to really help Gridcoin. The least of which being the user-friendly sort of approach, the user-first design philosophy. So we're going to be able to go out and get researchers to stand up compute projects because it's just going to be easy for them to stand up compute projects. Other parts, it's got cryptographic sort of identification baked into it from the start, so it makes it easier to hook to Gridcoin. It's learning from the years and years of experience around RAC and the Gridcoin economics experiment that's been going on for the past 15 years. And it has also recently been sort of reformatted is the wrong word, but evolved architecturally to enable app proto sort of integration. So this can be built on, this can hook up to your app proto did, the ID. And when that happens, then you get a identifier that gets your credit, and you can use that identifier in other parts of your digital life. Compose a social media message with that same identifier. Or there's a bunch of other stuff getting built on app proto right now. And you can participate in any of those programs or apps or initiatives. And then you have one single identifier across all of those initiatives that accumulates sort of reputation and score. And that includes the Gridcoin distributed computing contributions. And with that score, you can do a lot of cool stuff with economic models. So that's pretty neat. And I think that's it. So I'll say one more time, if you want to contribute to grep, you can go to compute.sios.tech. That's compute.sios.tech. You click contribute to science. You click grep. You choose your whichever leaf you want to contribute to. Contribute to all 3 of your CPUs or GPU leaves if you want. Contribute to all 6 if you have a CPU and a GPU. And then there should be a button here. And then you should ping me and say, John, you idiot, you didn't put the actual connect command on the leaf page. So I'll do that. So by the time you click on the leaf you want to contribute to, there will be a command here that's like how to download Lettuce, connect to this head at Star Crunchy. If you want to contribute, the repo is jring-o/lettuce-compute. Leave an issue, give it a star, whatever you want to do, and then join the Lettuce test channel on Discord. That's it. So now we all leave, right? I think we're good.
Yeah, I think that's good. Look, it's a lot of work. A lot of work you guys have been doing on this. I mean, I've been plugging hard on Gridcoin Core stuff, so I haven't really been directly testing Lettuce lately. But I have been poking in the Lettuce test channel and been following you guys, and looks like a lot of work has been done on this. Um, and just a comment from the Gridcoin side, we are going to be. This is not done yet, but it's in the works. We're redesigning the Gridcoin uh, researcher ID system. So, right now the way we're going to integrate this, John, I think is we were just going to, like import as a foreign field, like the CPID or whatever, just to be able to wire up credit temporarily for Lettuce or something like that. But eventually, where we're going with this is we're going to be able to fully support multi distributed computing domains in Gridcoin. There's going to be a master like Gridcoin ID that would be permanently assigned to you, that would be independent from any um, computing domain like Boink's CPID or whatever. And then you would be able to essentially bind your computing domain IDs into that main Gridcoin ID, and therefore link it all together. That's kind of like where this is going. Um, Trying to think through balancing the complexity versus stability issue. What we're trying to get away from is this, is the Boink's real problem with CPID stability, right? Everyone has been through split CPID problems, initial CPI change problems, all these crazy things that make it very difficult to get started in Gridcoin. It really kills the initial user experience, but it also causes trouble for people that have been doing computing a long time, right? So we got to get past that, and we have to have a system that's stable, an ID system that's stable across many different computing domains, and that's where we're headed. John, I don't know if you have any comments on that, but CPID has
No.
been a big issue for many, many years, right? So,
Yeah, no, it's just exciting that there's an evolution happening of some of this underlying architecture.
yep. All right, I think that's it, folks. Uh, Someone go break lettuce, turn it into cabbage, see what you can come up with.
There's so many good puns. I accept all puns. Share them in the chat.
We get, is it going to become kimchi next, or is it going to be, spicy? All right,
I guess
guys.
you could over ferment your project.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
All
right.
right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.